Good morning, good morgen, buenos dias. This is your host Samaksh Kalra and you are watching Vibe on Skype. In this show we call well-established media professionals to talk about the prevalent issue in the travel industry. The current issue, as we all know, is lockdown. How will the travel industry get back to normal after the lockdown or during the lockdown? What's the plan? How we see this industry getting back to its feet? So for this discussion, we have our special guest for today. Any guesses? Are you done with your work?
Oh, I'm right in between work to have a cup of tea and talk to you.
Yes, you guessed that right. Zane Henry, project editor at National Geographic Traveller UK. So, let's get started. So, let's begin.
But just before we start anything, I feel it's very, very important for me to say that my hair doesn't usually look this way. I use much room. I lockdown. Okay, now we can go on.
All right. So in the light of COVID-19 and the lockdown, I believe that the travel industry is the most affected industry. For example, industries like entertainment or technology, they had gears, right? They had the time. But for travel, an industry of an employer of 330 million, an industry that redistributes wealth like no other, it was like riding a Mercedes and someone just pulled the brake. You can't travel anymore, right? So I would like to know, what is the damage here? What are we dealing with here? And when do you think travel will become normal again?
Yeah, so like you said at the beginning, like the travel industry has been affected, and that's because the disease travels. So like in nature, it came from people moving around, and the disease travels around. And obviously people need to cut that down. In terms of the damage, that's impossible to quantify. It's ongoing. We're still trying to figure out exactly how society is being affected, let alone how the travel industry is being affected. Kind of like Brexit in a way, where people are still figuring out what the long-term effects will be while they are contending with the short-term effects.
Mm-hmm.
But we can already see some of the effects. In the travel media industry, A Lonely Planet has shut down, which was obviously a big massive blow because it's such a recognized brand and it's such a valuable part of the travel media industry. But in the travel industry itself, small tour operators are being affected the worst because of small businesses that are being hit by having just people not wanting to travel.
Exactly.
So we'll see how the bailouts and the schemes will help them. But I think the biggest challenge will be the social cultural shift that we'll need to have once we come to terms with how everything will be affected in the long term. And then the final part of the question is, when do I think travel will go back to normal? It will never go back to normal. There is no new normal. There is no normal. We'll have a new normal, and then a new normal after that, and then things will just keep changing. We'll just need to adapt.
It will be the same. It will just adapt to the changes, and we'll see more mask and social distancing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think the fear of traveling, the fear of boarding a flight that every potential traveler has in their mind, will ever go away?
I don't think it'll go away, but it will evolve. I think it'll change. I think that the people who are generally afraid of traveling will stay afraid of traveling. I think that the intrepid and courageous few will continue to push past fears.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the restrictions will change the way we travel.
Yeah.
And even that will evolve as we go along in terms of the ways in which travel is regulated. And I guess the mindset will because people will be more vigilant, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Hygiene, safety, and disease management will be radically overhauled. people will be more mindful of this. Everyone will be wearing gloves and masks for the future. And then there are like small things. I don't know what the fate of in-flight magazines will be like. Who's going to want to pick up the in-flight magazine that thousands of people have typed out? And I don't know if people will still want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And what are the new trends that the industry will see in the coming 5 years? For example, I believe that since climate change was a big thing between travelers, people were genuinely concerned about the climate change. Now it will actually accentuate because they saw it's all in the news that the mother nature is healing and we should be concerned about the climate. So do you think that people will make more responsible tourism choices?
I think that you are giving this far more thought than anyone giving it now. I think people are not connecting the same dots as you because they're not having the same forethought. And even for me, it's like hard to make these kind of predictions now because we're still just contending with how much our society has changed, how much and changing.
Yeah.
Like still ongoing. So I think that hopefully people will be more mindful of those things. And in terms of trends, domestic travel by Zane will be that's what people are thinking about now already. We're already seeing a massive uptick in traffic to our hospitals on domestic travel. People are thinking more about weekend trips, road trips, and we're looking to get an article now on camping in the wild.
Yeah.
So all those kinds of things will hopefully become more prominent. But in terms of like things like the systemic changes and just implementation on social distancing on flights,
yeah,
I can't predict that. I'm cool.
I mean, no one can exactly predict that, right?
Yeah, it's just we're living in a brave new world where none of the old rules apply. So we're waiting to see what the new rules will be.
Do you think we'll have something like virtual traveling in trend? People are just sitting at home using VRs and traveling everywhere.
I mean, I don't think it'll be any more than it is at the moment. People will be curious, and the curious people will travel. Like that's just they will travel as much as they are allowed to travel. That's what people think.
Like we'll have restrictions, but people who want to travel will still travel.
Exactly.
Right. And do you think how this would change the dynamics of travel journalism? Like would we have more original stories than fabricated stories, or eliminating the us versus them attitude since people are traveling more with an open mind and it's not like the previous time, like you could just book a ticket and just go. Now you have to make sure that your health is okay, that you're going to a good place and all that. How do you think it would change the dynamics of travel journalism?
Can I ask for clarification?
Sorry?
Can I ask for clarification what you mean by fabricated stories?
Like I believe, since I'm working in the journalism industries, even if as much as journalists do not accept it, some part of the stories are a little much by some companies are fabricated to convey their message or to give the feel or to sell the product, right? They add some sort of emotional stuff in it. You think like people are now traveling with an open mind, or it's not as much as accessible as it was before, then you would like I was willing to travel every day once in a week, right? But with the new rules and with the safety in mind, I just travel once in a month. So I might not go for Amsterdam or for places where I could just party. That was a part of traveling. I would rather go to places, say somewhere in Tanzania, just to have a real experience of the local culture. So do you think that would change the dynamics of travel journalism? Like lesser stories about the most visited places or the places where you can have fun instead of having new stories where you actually was confronted with the local culture?
Yeah, I can't speak to what you were talking about fabricated stories because I respectfully disagree with it. But in terms of changing the dynamic of travel journalism, personally, I don't think it will have that impact. I think that good publications will continue to do good work. and those with bad habits will continue their bad habits. They will just do so according to whatever the new strictures will be. I do believe that there is a kind of widespread growth towards responsible travel, but that will continue to come from increasing awareness, the prevalence of social media, and just an increased consideration of our shared humanity, rather than just coming from global pandemic.
Yeah. All right. About my own media company, I've started a media company called the TRAVELXS. So I'm planning to build an application where you can control your carbon footprint. You can monitor your choices. If you take a flight, what carbon footprint impact you have with the train, if you eat vegan food or you eat meat. So it's basically an application like Airbnb where you get to monitor your carbon footprint and you get to stay in a global home. It's a concept by ISEC. It's an UN organization. Basically, if I'm from India and I'm coming to London and I connect with you, then I can stay at your place with your permission and you will be getting paid by TRAVELXS, and the other person will have a cheaper accommodation staying with you and experiencing the most local culture. So do you think this application would help the future travelers, or it could become the future of the industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything you said sounds great. So,
right.
if your app can deliver all of those things and not crash my phone, yeah. I'll be the first to download it. So it'll come down to your app's functionality. But yeah, that sounds great.
That's great. How does Nat Geo Traveler is going to adapt to the upcoming changes? Will we see any different content in the upcoming magazines?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's all anyone is talking about at the moment. So we can't really ignore it. And it's like, and of course, fundamentally affects the way that the industry functions. So yeah. We will adapt the same way we always adapt. Like, working in the travel media industry, you need to be sensitive to what's happening in the world. If there are widespread bushfires in Australia, you need to think about how you cover that part of the world. If there are terrorist attacks in Turkey, you need to think about how you cover that. And the way in which we approach and adapt to those things is by staying nimble, staying relevant, by staying sensitive, and by staying curious. For example, a large part of what we're discussing in our editorial meetings is about how certain destinations are opening up.
Right.
And figuring out what that actually means. Because just because the place is open to having visitors, what are the implications of that? Is that something that we should be promoting? Is it something that people need to be informed about where no one travels there? Because all different places have different traveling restrictions.
Right.
What is the benefit to the leader? What is the benefit for the traveler? And how people being traveled to be affected? So we need to think about all of these perspectives and be socially responsible.
All right. And if it comes to you, you like to travel a lot. You write lots of travel stories. What do you think would be the not to go places, or some places where you would definitely want to go when the restrictions go off?
You will need to forgive me, but I'm not really making travel plans right now. There's just way too many unknown things. We're not allowed to travel at the moment. Say what the no-go places will be, because I don't really believe in no-go places. I believe that if you are considerate and you think about the safety of your people you're to, then anywhere you can do. But I'd say myself, as soon as I'm able to travel safely, I will go with my family to South Africa those times.
Yeah. Well, that was all the questions that I had. Thank you so much.